before we open up the floor, but tell us, what got you doing your artwork and being a creator? How did you get started with all this? We'll start with Julie.
I've been drawing my whole life, and I guess before this, I met PJ. I was new to children's books, and so we kind of met you. Well, we were both going to the SCBWI for Austin, which is for children's book writers and illustrators. And so I did a conference, and it's kind of a stressful experience, and kind of had been drawing for everybody else for years, doing commissions, and then decided to stop and draw for myself. And so that was in like 2014 or 2015. And picked up my colored pencils and paper and just started drawing my favorite movies and favorite characters, which is what I did when I was little. And yeah, that's what's happened. So how many years later, I've just been drawing almost every day to get better, and then became a business, and now I do shows and I love it. So that's what I do.
PJ?
I always tell people about your story because it's so inspiring. Like, yes, and no, it makes me really happy. Yeah, so I'm PJ Hoover, and I did not like writing as a kid at all. In fact, I was an engineer. For 15 years, I designed computer chips, and then one day, I had 2 kids. After my second kid was born, one day, I didn't have both kids on one day. Anyway, after my second kid was born, and she was an amazing sleeper. Like, she was sleeping through the night at 2 weeks old, right? So, and at the same time, I gave up watching TV. So all of a sudden, I had a lot of extra time on my hands. And it was around the time the Lord of the Rings movies were coming out, which I loved. And so I was watching the movies and rereading all the Lord of the Rings books and reading the Silmarillion and totally nerding out on Middle Earth, because I'd always loved reading. And then I thought, I'm spending all this time and energy like memorizing details and investing myself in this world someone else has created, and there's not like a rule book out there that says I can't create a world of my own. So every night after the kids would go to bed, I'd start writing, and I'd write for like an hour. And then, I found out I actually loved it. I loved the process of creating, and I wrote one book, and then I wrote a sequel to that, and a sequel to that, and it kind of just took off from there. And so I started writing in 2004. I went to full-time writing in 2008, and now here we are.
Izzy?
So I've been a full-time artist for about 7 years now, but like my main type of art up until a year and a half ago was I do portrait art in like oil, pastel, and charcoal. And I got into this type of art because we just had a friend that gave us a booth at a Comic-Con randomly, and I was like, oh, okay, so I'm gonna have to do some Comic-Con art. What am I gonna do? And my husband is an Asian art appraiser, and so we're like obsessed with Japanese old black prints. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna combine these two. So I just sat and did like a quick collection of what I could try to put together with my family, my favorite animes, and it worked, and I like it. And now we're a year and a half in, and I like it so much better than my other art now. I enjoy it more, and it's actually more lucrative too, which I was very much surprised by.
Cool. So what influences your artwork? What are your influences? Who are the people that you are influenced by? Along those lines.
Growing up, I wanted to be an animator for Disney, so I was definitely highly influenced by Disney movies, like the classic Disney animated films. I loved like Looney Tunes, Garfield. So actually, I taught myself how to draw when I was younger by just copying like Garfield comic strips and Looney Tunes, Bugs Bunny, and Mickey Mouse cartoons. And then I guess just like through the years, definitely there's certain artists online. I love Brian Kessinger. All his mashups are super influential to me. There's the Animated Life. She's Amanda McFarland. I follow her for years. I don't know. And I love Miyazaki movies. Those are probably, I love watching. Like the backgrounds and the landscapes are gorgeous. I know I'm missing some stuff, but yeah.
My biggest mythology is my biggest influence, I would say, as far as my writing, because I fell in love with mythology in 6th grade. We had to read a book in school called Mythology by Edith Hamilton, and all of a sudden I was like, whoa, there's this cool world of like gods and monsters and epic voyages and quests and stuff, and so I just read everything I could get my hands on about mythology. So when I started writing, it seemed like the natural place for me to get my ideas from. And so The Emerald Tablet was my very first book, and I always like to note that it came from a couple of my very favorite influences, one being Star Trek, and then the other is this specific Star Trek episode from the original series. It was called Who Mourns for Adonis, and it was basically how Enterprise goes to this planet and Apollo is there, and he grabs them out of the sky, and it has like this whole mythology theme through it, and I was like, whoa, and so that's kind of like the inspiration, one of the inspirations behind my very first book, The Emerald Tablet.
take a lot of influence from Japanese woodblock prints, for like traditional art, and then all of the animes that I love. I love to get the little favorite characters, handpick them and just plop them into the pieces. But we're actually planning on trying to switch our art a little bit more into the direction of actually having them carved with wood blocks. This summer we're gonna go to Japan and we're taking part in a, I forgot the word for it, but it's not like an internship, but you're like studying with the different artists, and we're gonna learn how to carve wood blocks so we can start to produce these, but like as actual wood blocks. Right now they're watercolors. I'm excited.
Well, I have a couple more questions, but before I ask my questions, I'm going to open up to the floor to see if you guys have any questions for these wonderful creators. Yes, ma'am.
What's the favorite character that you've created?
So probably my favorite thing to draw, if it's just, is anything from Narnia. It's like Aslan pieces, because I love those books, and so I've loved like kind of taking those books and then each one and then trying to recreate something in my own style, in my own way. And so I'm hoping to keep, like, I'm working on a piece with Pegasus right now, and then I want to do Puddleglum next. So I'm just slowly doing those pieces because they're very close to my heart. So yeah, that's probably my favorite thing. And then of course I love Star Wars, and then Pride and Prejudice, Jane Austen stuff too. But
I have a book, it's called Tut, the Story of My Immortal Life, and it's about King Tut. And when I was 7 years old, I went and saw the King Tut exhibit for the first time. It came through America, and it left this huge impact on me. And so in my King Tut book, basically, he doesn't die at 19 like the real King Tut did. In my book, he's 14 and immortal, and he's stuck in middle school forever. So he's just like, it's this fun, sarcastic voice, set in modern day Washington, D.C. And for me, that's like my natural voice right there. Yeah, the sarcastic 14-year-old. Yeah. So.
I'd say my favorite character right now is Toph. I did this print of her. I love like the rainy day village, and my favorite part of it is I put a running away cabbage cart, like, oh no, my cabbages, like in the background. We were actually met Michaela, the voice actress for Toph, at one of the other conventions we did, because we did an Eastern Air Temple piece. And so she actually commissioned us to do this one. And so it's like extra, extra special in my brain now.
That's really cool.
she's so sweet.
Other questions? Well, then I'm going to ask questions here. So my questions tend to be dangerous. What are the biggest hurdles for being a female creator these days? And I know there's all sorts of hurdles out there, but what would you say has been y'all's biggest hurdle in this male-dominated society? Sorry.
I feel like because did you start doing Comic Cons when I did 2019
I started,
or earlier?
I was doing them, but with groups of authors.
I feel like back when I started, there weren't as many female artists. And there's been a lot more these last few years, which is amazing. And then, but just like you're competing with other, male artists to get spots and booths and stuff. And so it's really fun now seeing a lot more, female creators. But to know that you can do this, and then I'm now a single mom too, and so I can fully support myself, my 2 boys, doing this as a business. And you have to, just hustling. I'm just constantly driving all over the U.S. right now, doing shows full time, and so to make it work, it does.
Yeah, I think honestly the biggest hurdle women have, as far as I've noticed, is like a self-imposed hurdle, if you will, because as I've gotten more feminist, and I'm not saying I'm like some feminist or something but like that, but as I've started analyzing it more, I start to analyze situations and I think, what would a man do in this situation, And I think a lot of times we hold ourselves back, or we're too nice, we apologize for too much stuff, or we don't want to step on anyone's toes. And I think, you have to like step back and think like, if I were a man, what would I be doing in this situation? How would I respond to this situation? And I'm not saying that's always the right way, but I think a lot of times we need to be more assertive, not apologize for things that we didn't do and stuff like that. And so that's what I have noticed and what I'm consciously trying to do, because it's like a business, we're running a business, and I want to be treated as a professional, so.
I haven't been in the Comic-Con scene all that long, but since I've been in it, I felt it to be like very welcoming and accepting. I haven't felt any sort of pushback as being a woman here, but with my other art that I still do, I get a whole lot of mansplaining, a lot of messages from older men being like, oh honey, you need to go and study the work of so much such artist. I'm just telling you, think red, green, and blue. Just think about it. And then like this one guy was telling me about how, the best way to wash your brushes is in gasoline. Okay. And then, no, it's fine though. It won't catch on fire. I tried. Outside, it's okay. Okay, block. But the Comicons are great.
I was gonna say, I can't see how anybody can tell you gasoline doesn't catch on fire. Apply a flame and see how that works. So what advice would you give for, first of all, just creators in general, but more specifically to female creators? What advice would you give if you're wanting to get into business, wanting to do artwork, going to the field of trying to become either an author or an illustrator?
Okay, you can jump in too. No, I'm gonna forget everything, but just, you're never too young. You're never too old even to do this. I mean, I don't think I really started doing Comic-Con until I was about 40. And so, my style changed so much these last, 5 or 6 years. And so you're never too old to start and do something you love. And that's my favorite part about doing these, is getting to meet young artists, or even older, a lot older artists. And you're not too old or too young to start, and just do what you love, draw what you love. Don't draw something because you want to sell it. All the pieces that I have up there to sell are only things that I love and that mean something to me. And just work at it every day, draw every day, and never give up. And it's scary, my gosh, doing Comic-Con for the first time was the most terrifying thing I've ever done. But it's because I heard an amazing podcast about it. And if I had never stepped into that fear, I wouldn't be here right now. And it has completely changed my life, for the better and for my kids. And so just trust yourself, work really hard. I'm not gonna stuff, but yeah, fill in the gaps.
I think what's really helped for me is because I mentioned, when I started doing Comic-Cons, I think it was actually 2011 was the first time I did a Comic-Con, but it was me and a group of other authors, and we all shared a table, and so we all have our one book there, and we have to, when people come by, it's like everybody can't just so it was not really a business. And it was about 2019, I think, when it did really kind of become that business. And what I noticed is, for me, selling books, I need to have a lot of variety on the table. I need to have something that's going to appeal to fans of mythology and to fans of Minecraft, and so that is what's really made a difference for me. As far as especially bringing in income, because you want to be able to be like, oh, you don't like mythology? Well, what do you think about science fiction? Or what do you think about choose your own adventure style books or stuff like that? So having that variety. And the thing is, I enjoy doing it. It's I do love doing all these books. It's not like I'm just writing a book that I don't like doing. These are super fun things. And so it's nice to be able to explore those different opportunities and give people a lot of variety.
I think one thing that really helps your table stand out when you're selling at cons is having, all of us here, I would say, have a certain style that when you walk by, it's not the same as all the other booths around. You have the colored pencil. There are not many booksellers at cons. I do my original stuff in watercolor. So look around, try to find something that'll make your work stand out. And then keep on top of whatever anime or different fandoms are most popular, and keep producing new work. So if you're at one con and you're gonna come back the next year, if somebody was gonna buy your work, they'll probably have already bought it. So have some new pieces out. Online sales are really, really great. You can promote your own work that way, and have another business that people will show up after having seen your stuff online and search out your booth. So it's helpful.
Question. So you shared, obviously you have your own muses, you have your own styles, you have your own comfort zones. Are there any subjects, genres, or styles that you secretly dabble in that are just kind of for yourself, that are outside of what you would normally present for people? Does that make sense?
I think, so it's funny because I'll do a lot of cartoony or more illustration stuff. So I actually bring everything. And so if you come to my table, you'll see stuff like this. And then I actually do ink animals, or I'll do really highly detailed pet portraits. I bring, that's all there. And so then they can buy a really detailed lion, or I'll do some of my illustration stuff. And so I will actually bring all of it. And then I'll do the Narnia pieces, and something that you wouldn't think would normally be at a con, or Pride and Prejudice. And so And those are actually, like, I was at Salt Lake last week, and that was what sold out and was I sold the most, was Pride and Prejudice and Jane Austen stuff. And so sometimes if you're doing something different, that sticks out. But yeah, but I don't draw horror, I don't draw scary stuff, so I don't bring that.
No, that's really true. Because like I have on my table, I have my dad's memoir that I worked on with him, and so like it's something totally. Or I had a nonfiction book on female engineers that was on the table, which is sold out. But yeah, it's nice to have that. So I think your question was, is there anything I dabble in secretly or whatever?
Yeah, but maybe just for yourself, or
Yeah.
kind of just explore something.
No, but maybe I'll have to think about that. Yeah, in my vast spare time.
Most of the stuff I have on my table is different like fandoms that are popular, but I do a lot of like really stupid stickers that I just really enjoy. So like a whole bunch of like derpy frogs stacked up and like capybaras in different outfits. Those are my favorite.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I was wondering, if you watch Miyazaki movies, what's your favorite character in a Miyazaki movie?
Oh my gosh, the first one I ever saw was Spirited Away, and I love Spirited Away. But probably Hal and Sophie. I love Howl's Moving Castle. It's probably my favorite. Yeah, Howl.
It's funny, we were just talking about this on the drive home yesterday. I've only seen like 2 Miyazaki movies, I know, which I can't believe that. So Spirited Away, because like everyone saw that, and then Ponyo. Yeah. So those are the only 2 I've seen. So I don't know that I have a favorite. Yeah.
I like No Face because he's slightly problematic, but also you're just like, oh, you poor sweetheart, I'm gonna help you.
So I'm going to ask a really off question, and not off in a bad way, off. You'll see what I mean. And I asked this with the creators I worked with yesterday, and it was an interesting question. So what do you think about the impacts of AI to y'all's industries and to your business, and what are your thoughts on that?
You want to go first? I don't.
Well, I mean,
Yeah, you go ahead.
Okay, so funny you ask, because like AI is here to stay, and I edit books too. I just edited a nonfiction book on generative AI, and I feel like in a little bit of a way I drank the AI Kool-Aid, not for my own writing. I'm not going to have AI start writing my books, but I think we need to look at ways that we can use AI to help us brainstorm new projects, whatever it is. Like, so one of the examples in the book was, you have a room full of engineers, and it's like, oh, we need to brainstorm a new project. So you bring all these engineers into this room, and you're paying them hundreds of dollars an hour to sit there brainstorming for a brainstorming session. Whereas you could say, have an AI generate 30 good ideas, and then start from that point forward, as far as like, so it's looking at time-saving ways. Are there ways that I can take this AI and save time from my schedule with it, And once again, I'm not looking to write books with AI. I don't think either of them are looking to do art with AI, but it is here, and it's not going to be going away, So we got to look into it.
I actually like AI. As you can tell, we make slow art, and I feel like my art is even going slower, like switching from painting to wood blocks, it's gonna take us a bit. But I like to play around in new things, and I kind of feel like AI is very scary to people nowadays because they don't want it to replace you. But like people were saying the same thing back when photography came out, like, oh, this is gonna take over, who's gonna want paintings anymore? But there's always still a market for it because it creates a different experience and feelings, that you don't get when looking at these other things. And I was messing around with it the other day. I was having a great time just using it to come up with some ideas for compositions. So I just go in there and I type in like Japanese village, rooftops, different things, and it looks awful. And all of these different things, like the rooftops are like merging into each other, and it doesn't make any sense. But seeing all these different photos, I can be like, oh, that's an idea. I can put this in that corner and play around. And it's just another tool that I can choose to use or not.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Like I've heard it's like, I have not used it, but I know I've heard it can be great for just like for reference ideas. Like you said, if you need to think about combining a couple different ideas, like for composition, exactly, it'd be a great tool for that. But I haven't used it yet, so I can't say, what it's like personally.
I have a feeling that there's a now class action lawsuit with ChatGPT. I'm sure you're aware of that, and especially PJ should be aware of that. And I think what we're going to do is licensing art and literature like we do with music. and then to have a BMI or ASCAP that will say, oh, if your AI is leveraging somebody's actual copyrighted work, then that person's going to get money from you. You're going to pay. You're going to have to pay for that,
Yeah.
and therefore, it's pennies on the dollar that all can add up and stuff. So I had a feeling it would probably be like that, and BNA also, you're right. It's here to stay. It's not going to go away, and we'll deal like we did with Napster and everything else that's come along. That's been major impacts with our advancing technology. So yeah, cool. Cool. Any other questions out there? Before I ask really bad questions, I'm gonna ask really bad questions here. So, yes, ma'am.
So, on a personal note, you were saying that you traveled all over America. For somebody that's starting off doing Comic-Con shows, how is that cost effective? Because you only do them on the weekends and you gotta go back home depending on where you are in America.
Well, it's funny. So if you're starting out, highly recommend you're just gonna do your local show, like start out like, because my very first con was at Hill Country Comic Con, and so in 2019, and then I did like Greater Austin. So I just stuck around local because you gotta spend a few years trying to, or at least a couple years trying to figure out your market, your setup, all that kind of stuff. You gotta see if you can make this a business. And then I really, so it was like, I think I started in 2019, and I didn't start traveling outside of Texas until this year. And so, but last year I did Dallas Fan Expo for the first time, which would have been my biggest show ever. And it was amazing. And that was when I realized, get out of Central Texas, because everybody here sees my work multiple times a year, local shows. But if you go to Dallas, it's new for people, lots more people, more income. And then I realized, okay, well now I need to get out of Texas because then there's even bigger shows. And so for me, it works. I mean, I need to eventually start flying, but that's something I have to work towards. So I'm a little scared to do that by myself and alone. But yeah, so we'll usually, and I'm homeschooling my 2 boys right now, so we're able to like leave drives to out of state, but it has to be a show that's worth it. I have to, know. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you're right about that. I go to a lot of the bigger Comic-Con, C2E2, go to New York here in